to school where he learned all about the electrical construction trade. Some of it he knew before, but he learned a lot more. He was good at what he did. Eventually, he started his own company, which grew into a major company. When I read your bio, I read in there that you chose a path less traveled, which led to a lifetime of adventures and challenges. Can you share some of those?
I started working in high school in the construction trade. Loved the Vietnam War was on. Went into the Navy, Naval Air. Afterwards, as an apprentice, and then that led me into a love of photography. I got to study for a while with Ansel Adams. Started started out of the electrical trade after 9 years. I started a company that grew into a multi-million-dollar company that did work in 32 states.
Is now that you're retired, did you enjoy the ride?
Well, it's not over. I don't believe anybody ever really retires. Now, as a writer, I'm very busy doing interviews such as this one. I'm living in a home that is in the village of my grandparents in Italy. And the population here is 188 people. And the home I'm calling from today was built in the 1500s during the Renaissance. And so it's still making turns right and left. Started a music academy here for the local residents and an English speaking school. So I'm still just changed jobs. I mean, nothing has much changed in my life.
Just getting back to some of the things that you've mentioned. You became a professional photographer and you studied with Ansel Adams.
Yes.
What was he like?
He was an amazing guy. He studied film. He'd study logarithms of film and stuff. He said, the more you understood your craft, the more creative you could be. And he said, if you went out and shot the world's greatest sunset, you only captured God's work. But if you shot it in black and white and created in the dark room, so when people looked at it, they could feel the warmth of the sun. They could feel the feeling in the photograph. He said, that was my work, not God's work.
I also read in your bio that you're involved with the Peter Centenna Educational Foundation.
Yes.
What is that? And what's its mission?
On my uncle's death, he asked if I would start a foundation with $1 million he left to start it with. And he was a World War II veteran who got his start out of the coal mine by somebody leaving him enough money to become an apprentice butcher. And he kind of wanted to do the same thing. So we give out about $50,000 a year to help students take that first step on the rung of the ladder towards their working career.
Were you always a writer, or did something inspire you to be?
Yeah, I was inspired. I was asked to write. I was asked by the state of California to participate in a program. They said, before we close, we'd like to read something by one of our participators. And they read that article I had written about the death of my son. He died in my arms after about an hour and a half. And
sorry for your loss.
well, no, he gave me more in that hour than most people I've met my whole life. I mean, there was a connection we made that was just unbelievable. He was born premature, and my business was failing. And as I held him in my arms, we made this incredible connection. And I just realized that I could go home and crawl up in a dark room and grieve, and my business would fail. And it would be always on his back. It would always be, he had a great business, but he lost his son. He'd always be an excuse for my failure. And I decided at that point that he was not going to live through eternity with my excuse for my failures, that I would leave there and I'd do whatever I needed to do to make that business a success. So he become the motivation for the success in my life instead of the failure in my life. And at the end of the conference, a gentleman walked up to me, because they read it at the end of the conference, not knowing it. And they ended it, said, we want to end this by this. And they read what I had written. Anyway, he walked up and shook my hand and said, I want to thank you for that. What you wrote changed my life. I'm going through something similar, and walked away. And that's when I knew I wanted to write.
I have one last question.
Sure.
What's in the future for Gary E. Smith?
Well, I'm continuing the series, the Warren Steelgrave series. I don't know, like I said, I have one book that's going to be published this month. I have one I've started in the series. And I don't know after that as far as the writing. In the village here, we've started a gallery for local artists to show their paintings and their poetry and poetry readings and stuff. So that's going to start. And we've started a music academy here for students. They only take 15 from around the world for these master classes.
Well, this is a perfect place to say thank you for sharing with us and thank you for giving me your time. And I look forward to talking to you another time.
All righty. Thank you.